And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call as the Indiana Hoosiers today defeat the 22nd ranked Ohio State Buckeyes 72-64 in Assembly Hall. It is a continuation of Indiana doing the one thing this year that we can count on them doing, and that is beating ranked teams at home. Of course, this time they had to do it without Noah Vonleh, which was the lead story at the beginning of the game. But to me, the lead story as we sit here after the game looking at this 8-point IU victory is the way that Indiana's upperclassmen stepped up today. Will Sheehy and Evan Gordon in the second half, I thought, were absolutely outstanding. Hunter Perea, even though he's not an upperclassman yet, was terrific in the second half. So many really good individual performances to break down today. I thought Tom Crean put together an excellent game plan, made some really good in-game adjustments that really helped this IU team secure the victory. But, wow, what a victory for Indiana after Ohio State jumped out to that 7-2 lead, or maybe it was 8-2 lead really early in the game. Indiana responded. It kind of went back and forth there in the first half, and then Indiana had that 21-5 run to end the first half. And even though Ohio State started out, I think it was a 6-2 run in the second half. You know, they scored some buckets. Indiana never relinquished control. You know, Ohio State got a few buckets, but Indiana never relinquished control. I thought that was huge. So much to break down today. What a win for Indiana, 72-64. Look, here's the thing. I'm just really, really proud of this team right now. And so if we want to talk about an opening statement, a banner moment, I am so proud of how this team fought today. You know, sitting at 16-12 in the conference and, not even being on the bubble. You know, you look at it, what is this Indiana team playing for? Noah Vonleh is not even in there. Well, this team is playing for a lot. They're playing for the name on the front of that jersey, Indiana. And I am so proud of this team today for doing that because that's what they did. This team fought, they hustled, they battled, and even early when not a whole lot was going right, they found a way to make it happen. This was an Indiana basketball win today, which is why I think everybody who cheers for Indiana should be happy and proud. You know, because I know stylistically this year it hasn't been what we've come to expect. Today it was. You know, Indiana had a lot of turnovers, but they offset it with a lot of assists and with hustle and just this was an Indiana victory in so many ways, and we're going to break it down on this episode of the Assembly Call. Thank you to everybody who is spending their early Sunday evening with us. I'm your host, Jared Morris, if I haven't said that yet. I'm going to be joined today by Ryan Phillips. Andy Bottoms will not be with us today, although he is going to do his typical stats analysis that you're going to want to get tomorrow morning, so make sure you go to assemblycall.com/subscribe and get on that. But Ryan and I are going to break down all of this game, all of the great individual performances, all of the terrific adjustments by Tom Crean. We're going to break them all down. And if you have questions, tweet them to us with the hashtag AssemblyCall. You can also go to assemblycall.com/hangout and leave your question as a comment there. We will get to it. What a win for the Hoosiers. Just a great win. Let me go over to Ryan. Let's get his opening thoughts, and then we'll start breaking this down player by player.
Yeah, just a fantastic win, especially without Noah Vonleh for Indiana. I thought, as you said, guys stepped up, played phenomenal basketball. You're starting to see some of those freshmen not making freshman mistakes anymore. You're starting to see the offense be run with more flow. You're starting to see guys sort of almost like get it, like the lights going on for some of these guys and how to work within the team concept and not just be, probably like they were in high school, the best guy on their team who has to just go every time he gets the ball. You're starting to see them work as a team and starting to see them work, toward a bigger goal than just scoring or playing defense or anything. It's actually like, working within a team concept. And as you said, Sheehy, I thought Evan Gordon played a fantastic game. And we were talking, and I said this on Twitter during the Iowa game, when Evan Gordon has a good game, we usually win. And they've been few and far between this year, but when he stepped up and played like a veteran you can rely on, Indiana's won games. And so that was really great to see. And I thought Hunter Perea was the biggest story today. I thought he stepped in there. He had 3 blocks, 5 rebounds, 8 points. He hit 2 or 3 free throws. I mean, he was the guy that was advertised when we recruited him, and I thought that was really nice to see him sort of have a great game, especially after everything that's gone on with him, to step up and play and and really get in there and mix it up and look like he belonged out there. And I mean, the guy who started for Vonleh, Jeremy Hollowell, played a great game as well. He had a great first half. With his foul trouble, he sort of got chased and didn't play as much in the second half, and Perea sort of stepped up and took that took that spot and played really well in it as well. So really no complaints today. I thought they just played fantastic basketball and continue to look like a better team every game.
Yeah. My mind is like overloaded with storylines that we need to go to. I think we have to start out with Will Sheehy. With all due respect to you, Ryan, saying that Hunter Perea is the biggest story today, he's a huge story, and we're going to talk about him because he was great. But we have to talk about Will Sheehy because Will struggled out of the gate today, and I thought Ohio State really came out today and did a great job through that first 5-6 minutes of the first half of taking Yogi and Will out of the game because those two guys couldn't do anything. And it's no coincidence that Indiana's run in the first half coincided with Yogi and Will stepping up, finding ways to get shots. I thought Indiana did a really good job of adjusting the offense and not having Yogi have the ball in his hands all the time. They took him off the ball. They even posted him up a couple times. They did some different things to get the ball in his hands. I thought Tom Crean made a lot of decisions like that today that I thought were very smart. We're going to get to those. But Will, I thought, from about maybe the 12-minute mark in the first half on, was terrific. And it continues the storyline now that we saw in that last game against Iowa where he scored 30 points, where Will is basically just putting this team on his back and saying, let's go, follow me. Because when you look at the numbers today, and this includes, I think Will was maybe 1 for 4 or 0 for 4, something like that. I mean, it was a poor start. He finishes the game 8 of 12 from the field, 3 of 5 from three-point range, 19 points, 6 boards, 4 steals, and assist. And and he had a couple turnovers, whatever. But more than that is when he made his buckets. Because I made a note in the second half, and we often talk about big moments, key points in games. In the second half, Ohio State cut the lead to 1. Somewhat hard to remember that because Indiana was able to get the lead back and never relinquished it again. But Ohio State cut the lead to 1. And right after that, Will and Evan Gordon knocked down trays. It pushed the lead right back out to 7. Indiana never let it get beyond that. But I thought it was huge leadership by those two seniors, but Will specifically. And as we approach his senior night on Wednesday, what he is doing right now to lead this team, 49 points in these last 2 victories, where Indiana is just desperate for victories, he's putting this team on his back. I mean, it is one of the more impressive performances we've seen from a senior in an IU uniform in a long time. And it's great to see. And it's kind of what we wanted and maybe expected to see early in the season, and Will struggled a little bit to assume that role. But my goodness, is he's doing it right now. And these last 2 games have just been terrific. And to me, he was the MVP against Iowa. He was the MVP today. It's great to see. Ryan, your thoughts on another just signature performance from Will Sheehy?
Yeah, I mean, up and down the floor, he was great. He also guarded Kraft for a lot of the afternoon, especially in the second half. And really, Kraft didn't do much offensively. Excuse me, he was 2 of 11 and scored 7 points. So Will and Yogi both frustrated him. But Will with his, it was more than just scoring. It was the rebounds. It was the defense. It was, he took a charge at one point, I believe, and just, he was all over the floor doing all the things that we have always known he can do offensively and defensively with the energy and the hustle plays, but also he was scoring and he was being effective offensively. And I think a big part of that was getting into the lane and affecting the game, from 15 feet and in. But then, of course, it was the last time we saw him hit through, 60% from beyond the arc. I mean, he's just not a great three-point shooter, but he's the last 2 games he's stepped up and made some really big shots. So, it was a great game, and it's like you said, these are back-to-back signature performances for him. So it's great to see that.
All right, numbers, Ryan. I don't know if you have the box score in front of you, but when you look at some of the numbers today, again, Noah Vonleh doesn't play today. This is a guy that I look at as the best rebounder in an Indiana uniform since Allen Henderson. And maybe, you can argue DJ White if you want to, but Noah Vonleh is as natural as good a rebounder as there is.
I completely agree. I think DJ Henderson, or I mean DJ White honed that skill. Alan Henderson was the best pure rebounder before Noah Vonleh.
Yeah,
I
just
completely
from freshman year on, just natural ability. Indiana out-rebounded Ohio State today 34-32. And no, Indiana didn't get the offensive rebounds they typically get. They only got 4. And that was clearly missing. And so when Ohio State's rebounding percentages are better than Indiana's, but to out-rebound them cumulatively, to basically, play this game to a draw on the glass was huge. Here's the number to me that stands out the biggest, Ryan. And, I mean, look, Ohio State going 0 for 11 from three-point range, that's obviously huge. They only made 61% of their free throws. That's also huge. And Indiana was able to make free throws, was able to make threes. Here's the number to me, Ryan. And, you talk about when Evan Gordon plays well, we win. Well, when we move the ball, when we have a good assist rate, when we have a good assist-turnover ratio, we win. And I know Indiana had 18 turnovers today, and you can look at that and be disappointed, and you should, because that's too many, and some of them were unforced. But keep in mind, this is the second or third best defense in America that we're playing, and it's the best team in the Big Ten at forcing turnovers against the worst team at the Big Ten at turning the ball over. So that was going to happen, and it did. The reason why Indiana won today is because they countered the turnovers with assists. Indiana had 16 assists today. This is a team that all season long we've been criticizing for their lack of ball movement. And I even tweeted out today, I thought the ball movement was beautiful. There were so many possessions where we saw guys cutting and moving and passing, and it led to easy shots. Indiana was 16 assists. Yogi had 4. Troy had 3. Austin Etherington had 3. Evan Gordon had 3. And that, to me, the ability to offset the turnovers with assists that led to easy shots. And keep in mind that Ohio State, a team with juniors and seniors all over their roster, had 5 assists. And Indiana had 16. That, to me, is the big number. That's the one that stands out, which is the reason why Indiana won. Ryan, feel free to cover that, and if any other numbers jump out to you, talk about them as well.
No, I think the assists were gigantic. And like I said, it's a symptom of guys sort of understanding the offense, knowing where other guys are going to be, knowing where you're supposed to move the ball at certain points or where your options are within the offense. And you're starting to see some of these younger guys, freshmen and sophomores who haven't played very much, starting to get it and starting to understand where the ball needs to go at certain times without hesitation. And when you move the ball freely like that without hesitating, it opens up everything, because when you slow down to think and then move the ball, the defense has time to react and play towards where flow towards the ball. And so it was, it's the last 2 games, really, the ball movement has been spectacular, and it's been these guys. I thought Stan Robinson had a tough game today. He made one phenomenal layup, but I thought that he had 4 turnovers, but a lot of his turnovers were trying to do things with the basketball. So at some point you can't really fault a guy for trying to make something happen. But you saw guys like Troy Williams and Austin Etherington and even Honor just move the ball. Just, if you're not going to score and you're not in a position to drive and score the ball, move it to the next guy and keep it moving, because if you move it correctly and you get to a good spot, you're going to get it back and you have a chance to score. So I just thought that was really impressive, just the flow to the game. And I thought that was coaching. I thought that was, maybe it's the fact that they've played 3 games right on top of each other and have just been thrust into having to get this done and having, all this pressure on them to, perform so close together that maybe it's finally just clicking. I don't know. But, it was great to see, and that was definitely, the flow on offense is the reason they scored 72 points, and teams don't score 72 points on Ohio State.
Ohio State was giving up an average of 58.5 points a game coming in. And especially how that game started early. You thought Indiana might be someone tweeted out first team to 40 wins, and that's what it looked like early. But, it was so different seeing the way Indiana moved today. And, again, Noah not being in there and not, clogging up the middle, I'm sure had something to do with it. But let's talk real quick, Ryan. There's still so many individual performances to talk about. We haven't really broken down Yogi, and I thought Yogi, again, like he was in Iowa, against Iowa, was terrific in picking his spots. and so many other guys like Austin Etherington and Troy Williams who aren't going to jump out at you when you look at the box score, but made a lot of winning plays, especially in the second half. But let's talk about Tom Crean, because this is a guy who was just getting killed after that Purdue game. And I think with the way Indiana's come back and that win against Northwestern, and it was obviously an up-and-down game in Wisconsin, but the way they came out early in that game, and then against Iowa and the way they played today, Tom Crean has found a way to rally this team, and it hasn't all just been, the rah-rah, sis-boom-bah stuff. I mean, the team is playing harder, but they're playing smarter, and there were even.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to point out to everyone that you just said rah-rah, sis-boom-bah on our podcast.
Yeah.
But go on. I'm sorry.
It's a live show with no preparation. Leave me alone, all right? So, but here's the thing about today is there were in-game adjustments today that I loved. Early in the second half, Ohio State, if you remember back, was basically going anywhere they wanted to against our man-to-man defense. And Troy Williams, I love Troy Williams. He's not good in the man-to-man defense. So Ohio State scores 6 straight points. Indiana switches to zone. They stop it. I thought Indiana's, switching up offenses or switching up defenses today really helped keep Ohio State off balance. And you mentioned, Ryan, late in the game, the Hoosiers have gotten better about getting the ball in bounds, and there's reasons for that. I mean, they look more well-coached in those situations. And so I guess you can retroactively criticize the coaching more for that, looking at some of the losses, but this team has learned from some of those mistakes, learned from some of the things that has cost them wins, and they're not doing those things now. And so I know that we wanted to see a lot of that growth sooner, but we're starting to see it now. And in wins like today, where Indiana exercised so many demons today, they did come out in the second half and play well and hold on to a lead, and they held on to a lead late. And we wanted to see offensive movement, and we saw it. And I just thought overall, for yet another game, you have to look at the work Tom Crean did, both preparing his team and allowing them to win it, inside the game with adjustments, not putting them in bad positions and getting, and putting them in good positions where they can win. I thought it was another really good job by him, and it's just maybe a sign of a coach who's learned about his young team, a young team that's starting to show maturity. But whatever it is, it's all coalescing at the right time here late in the season.
Yeah, I think we made the comment last year that last season Tom Crean probably knew his team as well as anybody knew their team in the country because of what those guys had been through, how he had been recruiting some of those kids since they were freshmen, with Cody and Yogi, and so even the guys who hadn't been there that long, he had known really well, and so he just had an innate knowledge of his team and what they could do. And this year, you pretty much wiped the slate clean. And so it takes time to figure that kind of stuff out. It takes time for those young kids to learn the offense. And I don't mean just know where they're supposed to be, because that, people think that, well, they practice, they should know the offense. It's a matter of running it and understanding where your teammates are going to be, guys you've never played with before, and getting down with the rhythm and the timing and everything. And so it's not all coaching, and it's his job has been to get these guys on the floor and working together and putting them into positions where they can win. But there are also guys that have never played together before. I mean, one of the things that I loved about Cody coming in with some of these other guys is that they had played AAU ball together for years. I mean, Cody and Yogi knew each other so well, and it's a different dynamic this year, and it's taken time, but you can finally see these guys, as I've been harping on so far in this episode, it seems like, but these guys are finally starting to get it and finally starting to realize where they're supposed to be and when to hesitate a little bit and then jump into the play, or when to, it's little stuff like that you don't even think about on the surface. And Crean, I think, over these last few games, even the Wisconsin game, that team was just deflated in the second half by so many things that happened, so many little things not going their way, whether it was officiating, whether it was just the ball bouncing wrong, not hitting shots. I mean, but they played hard, and they looked early in that game like they were determined to win. And then you got the Iowa game where I thought it was just a great game. And then today, another great all-around performance. And like you said, things like inbounds plays, it seems like they finally have it figured out. And I don't want to say that, with too much confidence, because I don't want against Nebraska for something bad to happen. But at the same time, like, it just seemed like there have been they've redesigned some things. He's putting guys in different spots. He's even defensive matchups and things like that today. They switched some things up and just to give different looks. And again, he was substituting on the fly today with with Vonleh being out, and he really seemed to really make all the right changes, and they clicked on all cylinders today, and it was fantastic, and it was everybody. It was the coaching staff and the players just sort of coming together to create a really great performance.
All right, so we got a good question, and I want to go to it. If you do have questions, tweet us with the hashtag #AssemblyCall. And here's the question, which comes from Joel Nost. What do you think we need to do to make it to the tourney? Here's the reason why I'm excited about this question, Ryan. It's because Andy's not here. And so Andy's not here with all of his RPIs and his little bubble stuff to try and make us feel bad about this, okay? Because here's what I know. All right, and obviously I follow Indiana a lot more closely than I follow anybody else. This is why I wrote on assemblycall.com last week, hey, dare to dream, Hoosiers, because I know we're sitting at 5-9. But look, we got 3 straight home games. If we can win those 3 home games, we're going on the road to Chrysler Arena at 8-9 in the Big Ten, playing the Big Ten champion in Michigan, with a chance to get a road win over a top 10, top 15 team. That can end that silence that we can't win win on the road. It'll help the RPI, all of those things. To do that, obviously, we need to win these 3 home games. We beat Iowa, a ranked team. We beat Ohio State, a ranked team. On senior night, Wednesday, we play Nebraska. I'm starting to feel pretty good about that win. I know we lost to them on the road, and I know this team has been up and down, so you have to hesitate a little bit before you expect anything. But we got, I feel like we won the 2 most difficult games of this 3-game stretch. And if we can beat Nebraska on Wednesday and then go into Michigan, a team that we've beaten at least 3 straight times, a team that we beat on the road last year, we finish at 500 in the conference. We probably finish at least 6th or 7th in the conference at that point. We've got 19 victories. All I'm saying is, especially when you attach the name Indiana to it, that's going to be a tough resume, especially if we can win 1 or 2 in the Big Ten tournament to keep away. So I know that the NCAA tournament seemed like such a faraway dream after the Purdue game, and it still is. There's still work to do. I mean, we've only won 2 of these 4 games that we need to do probably to get back on the bubble. But Ryan, Andy is not here to pour the cold water of reality on us, whatever that may be. So give me your thoughts. I mean, what does Indiana need to do? Obviously, we're doing as much as we possibly can, but do you think if we can beat Nebraska and then go into that Michigan game and either play well or even get the win, how are they going to keep Indiana out at that point? You tell me that.
Yeah, if we win our these last 2 games, I think that Indiana's made the tournament. I think momentum has a lot to do with it. That's why I asked Andy about it on our last podcast. Would momentum, and how they're playing late affect it? And I think it may not on the overall resume. They may, not say that, but I think that if a team wins, what would it be, 5 of its last 6 games in a tough conference like this, especially especially when in that stretch they've played, it'll be 4 ranked teams. I think that's going to cinch it. If we don't, then you got to win some games in the Big Ten tournament. First of all, you've got to beat Nebraska. If you lose to Nebraska, it's over. The dream is over at that point, I think. You've got to beat Nebraska, and then you've got to go to Michigan. And, if you win it, I think you cinch your spot. If you lose, then you've got to make a run in the tournament. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, I agree. I think if you win out, there's no way they can keep you out. That's 19 wins against a really tough Big Ten slate with a few really big wins over, Wisconsin, Michigan. Then you've got Iowa, Ohio State. It would be Michigan again. I think that if you make that run, finish at 500 in the conference, and have won, 5 of your last 6, then yeah, I think that you've made the tournament.
Ryan, I think sometimes people talk about body language, right? On the court and looking at it, and you can say that it's overrated. I will say that watching the Penn State loss and the Purdue loss, there seemed to be something off about this team, right? Like, independent of the score, independent of everything, if you just showed me clips of this team, they looked off. They didn't look together on the court. And I was noticing today, and I noticed in the Iowa game, and I've noticed in the last couple games, even in Northwestern, at certain points in the Wisconsin game, the team seems different. Like they seem to be, I don't know, quicker to pick each other up on the court, and there just seems to be a different togetherness, and it's one of those things you just kind of look at, you get a feel for, and then you see tweets like what you just alerted me to in our chat, what I'm going to read out right now. This is from Dustin Doperak's Twitter, if you're not following him right now. And he's obviously sitting in the post-game press conference. Hunter Perea is out there. Will Sheehy's out there. Ask Perea, this is Dustin's tweeting. Ask Perea what it meant for him to have performance he's had after the month he's had. Before he could answer, Sheehy spoke up. Sheehy, quote, Hunter's been working really hard over the past couple of weeks since that happened. He's sorry for his actions, obviously, and he's going to move on from it. He's a great kid. It's not going to happen again. You look at this in the postgame. There was also a moment in the game where Hunter made a play and Will came right up to him and was, kind of coaching him and leading him and teaching him. And you correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be, but I feel like I'm seeing more togetherness from this team on the court, just in terms of their ability and willingness to communicate between plays, and even Will's willingness to step up with some of the younger guys and go over and talk to them and provide instruction. Like, I feel like I've seen it more, and it's coincided with some wins, and I get that it can be anecdotal and you can kind of like cherry pick examples, but I feel like I'm seeing it. I feel like I'm seeing a team that's more together, that's more connected, and I don't know what happened in between the Purdue game and in between the Northwestern game. Obviously, that long week where we had the game canceled after the ceiling tile fell in Assembly Hall. But there is something palpable that is different about this team, and that's why I don't think it's a coincidence that the team is 3-1 since then. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we talked about it at that time. We had the assembly. We had the assembly fall episode where the roof came in. Yeah. And we talked about what does this mean, and I thought coming off that Purdue loss that having essentially a week off was a good thing at that point of the season. Everybody just needed to step back and decompress and figure out what was going on. And again, and I said at that time, I could be wrong. This could be awful. Because you might want to just get right back out there and forget it happened. But I think that it was really good for this team to get that sort of week off and figure out what's going on and who are we and all that stuff. And to see, Will step up for his teammate, I mean, in the press conference, that's, and I honestly, and looking at Dustin's Twitter timeline, I think that is a fair question to ask. I don't think he was trying to go after Perea there with that question, but it's still nice to see Sheehy be protective of his teammate and step up and say, hey, you know what? This is a guy who's working his butt off and is sorry for what he did, and it's not going to happen again. And be a leader in that way by stepping up. Again, I go back to what we were talking about. I mean, a lot of these guys hadn't played together before or played very much together or knew each other that well. I mean, when you get, so many young guys in a room together, it takes a while to build that bond and to really have them sort of understand each other and understand, what they're supposed to be doing. At the same time, they're all adjusting to being in college and, working on a college practice schedule and playing college level games and things like that. And so there's so many stresses, and usually that bonds a team and brings them together, but it can also be sort of a fracturing thing, and not anything terrible, but it can sort of, when you're all dealing with so much stress, it can prevent you from coming together. And I think that week off may have been, key for these guys to just kind of relax and sort of, maybe connect with each other some more instead of, being in the routine of, all right, now we're going to go travel and do this, and we're going to, go to practice and go to class and then go to a game and then prep and do film, and maybe just having a more relaxed week really helped them. And but you're seeing it. I mean, you're right. You're seeing it on the floor. These guys are picking each other up, and they're working with each other in a much better way. And there's definitely a sense that it's a team now and not just a bunch of really talented guys.
All right, so let's start analyzing some of the individual performances. And we've talked on this show, we talk about the movement, right? And that class clearly has not lived up to some of its early billing. And we've even talked about the fact that the true movement for this program was when Will and Victor came in, because when they were an unheralded group, and when we talk about just the change in attitude and swagger. Those two guys really brought it. And as soon as I found out today that Noah wasn't going to play, and this was not news that broke until about a half hour beforehand, and I don't know when, I don't even know what's wrong with Noah. I mean, he was in a boot, he's wearing a sweatsuit, so we have to get an update. I haven't seen one.
They said some type of foot inflammation. They made it seem like it had been something he'd been dealing with for a little bit, but it was just too much today.
Yeah.
But no specific injury. No, they didn't say it was a broken bone or anything like that. So no real specific assessment.
Okay, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But as soon as I saw that, I thought this is a day for the movement, because we saw that Hollowell was going to be stepping up, and so Will Sheehy, in turn, he's not the official movement in terms of this show. We've kind of called him the movement. He was great. Let's move him to the side, though. Let's look at Yogi, Jeremy Hollowell, and Hunter Perea, who were three guys that I thought really needed to step up today. And, Yogi didn't have a great shooting night. He was 3 of 9 from downtown. He was 5 of 14 from the field. And he did have 3 turnovers. But he had 20 points. He still led the team in scoring. And we haven't even really talked about him. And that's kind of, the whole thing with Yogi is sometimes we take his contributions for granted. And he had 4 assists. He had 2 rebounds. But I thought Yogi really did a good job of not forcing it. Like, I can't think of a lot of those field goal attempts that felt forced. And I think a lot of the ones that he made came at really opportune times. And I thought, whereas in a lot of games he has had to force things, I thought the offense did a better job of getting him good shots today. And I thought the game plan helped him do that. And so we'll talk about him. But I also want to talk about Jeremy Hollowell and Hunter Perea. And I predicted a double-double for Jeremy Hollowell before the game, who started. He didn't quite get there. I think he only finished with 4 points and 5 rebounds. But I thought, he was missing some shots early, but he was taking them. He was aggressive. And during a time in the game when Indiana was kind of feeling itself out a little bit, I thought Hollowell's aggressiveness helped us, even though he wasn't making shots. And I thought at the start of the second half, especially the first 3 possessions, he played really good defense. He scored his 1 field goal during that start. And I know that it's a small contribution, but I even tweeted, Jeremy Hollowell isn't going to let us start out poorly in the second half. Now, granted, right after that, he gave up a bucket, he got his 3rd foul, and he wasn't a big factor from that point on. But I thought he, again, was aggressive and confident and was showing some of the signs of the Jeremy Hollowell that we had hoped to see. Then we get to Hunter Perea, who, you look at his first half numbers, Hunter had 2 points, he only had 1 rebound, didn't really do much else. I mean, he was good in his time, but he didn't play that much in the first half. His final numbers, 8 points, 5 boards, 1 steal, 3 blocks. He was 3 or 4 from the field. He knocked down free throws, including a big one or 2 late. Hunter was outstanding. There was one play in particular where there was a really poor post-entry feed. It's the one that he would have typically knocked off of his knee out of bounds. He was able to corral it, catch it, score. He had the block shots. He even had an alley-oop, which I thought was apropos because our buddy Zach Gropper, typically our producer, he's not here tonight, but he enjoyed his final game as an undergrad at Assembly Hall today. If you check our Instagram account, assemblycall.com or assemblycall_IU, he tweeted out a picture in the pregame of an alley-oop from Yogi to Hunter. That ended up happening in the second half, and it was a big play. And so, Ryan, give me your thoughts on those guys, because I thought really today, and we can talk about Troy, we can talk about Stan, some of those guys, but I thought this was really a day where the upperclassmen, Austin Etherington too, that we have to talk about. So great to have so many individual performances to talk about, but those movement guys, I thought they really did a good job today of, even if the box score doesn't necessarily show the efficiency for guys like Yogi and Jeremy Hollowell, their aggressiveness, their attitude, their energy, their effort, it was spot on, and it's what we've been wanting to see from those guys.
Yeah, I think that Hollowell and Perea were big difference makers with Vonleh out. Hollowell, there's been a different look to him over the last few days or last few games, and I said it on the last podcast. It just looks like he's having fun and he's enjoying it and he's being aggressive and he's out there just playing basketball as opposed to just seeming like a ball of stress, and looking like he's questioning everything he does. He's just playing, and he's looked really good, and he's aggressive too. He gets the ball, and even if he misses it, he's putting himself, like, he had a couple, plays where he caught the ball in the post and looked to go, and he hasn't been down in the post very much this year, but hey, I'm all for it. Throw it down there and see what he can do, because he certainly has the athleticism and the talent to make something happen. As far as Hunter goes, I thought on the defensive side of the floor, he changed the game, because without Vonleh, Ohio State just killed us in the paint tonight. And they were going to do that without Vonleh, without that kind of defensive presence. They were going to do that. But Hunter came in the second half and really sort of stopped the bleeding. At least he made them work for it. It wasn't just – you didn't see as many guys just gliding to the hole. But he had 3 blocks and mixed it up in there, rebounded well, at least challenged some shots. And then offensively, he where you don't really typically expect him to do much, he contributed, and he had some really nice finishes, and it was just great to see. And hopefully it's sort of like like I said, the light's going on for these guys, and they're going to start. This is going to start being a consistent contribution. But again, kudos to both of them. They both played 15 minutes, so kudos to both of them, and kudos to Coach Crean for having the the confidence to go to those guys with Vonleh down. I mean, you saw Jeff Howard get about 8 minutes. I didn't think he played very well, but he did what he does. He hustles and dives on the floor and does things like that. But the other 2 guys were the ones who really impacted the game and made a big difference.
Well, and Devin Davis got those Jeff Howard minutes early, and I thought Devin did some good things in the Iowa game. It felt to me early in this game like the moment was a bit too big for him. I thought he only had 1 turnover, but I thought he had a couple panic moments, and so I actually thought that was a good adjustment to let Jeff Howard play those minutes in the second half when it's kind of more winning time, and I didn't think Devin necessarily earned them. Real quick before we move on, let's talk about Yogi. Give me your thoughts on Yogi, because again, not a particularly efficient day, but I thought especially he's got Aaron Kraft guarding him, and so that it's going to be harder for him to maneuver. But look at the numbers. Aaron Kraft is a guy that is lauded as just this great thing, and he scores 7 points. He has 6 boards, 4 assists, 3 steals. So it's kind of a typical Kraft day. He's 2 of 11 from the field. He does end up with 3 turnovers. But I thought, frankly, that Yogi outplayed him in a lot of ways. I mean, not just points. Obviously, he outscores him 20-7, ties him in assists 4. And didn't necessarily have the steals or the defensive impact. But I thought Yogi, again, and here's what I was really impressed with in that Iowa game with Yogi, is that other guys are stepping up. Will's stepping up, and Stan's stepping up in that Iowa game. And Yogi doesn't need to get a whole bunch of shots when the other guys are going. And I thought, again, today, even though we finished with 14 shots, which was the most on the team, and I was actually surprised by that, because I thought he shot when we needed him to, but when other guys were going, he was happy to defer to them, and he didn't force things. And so I was really impressed. By the numbers, it wasn't the most efficient game, but I thought Yogi's decision-making today, like it was against Iowa, was really good and put us in position to win this game, which we did.
Yeah, I had no complaints with Yogi today. I mean, I thought some of his drives he went in there and, didn't really have a Vonleh to dump the ball off to offensively, so he had to force some of the shots in the post where he was guarded, and so he got a couple shots blocked, and he maybe was a little over aggressive in that way. But I also think he took the shots he needed to, and he's a guy that this team relies on so much. And even if you're splitting hairs about a 5 for 14 performance, he did score 20 points, and was in possession of the ball with, Dan Dockich's favorite defender on him all day. It's actually Dan Dockich's favorite human. But, but then also, he's 3 of 9 from 3. And if you had told me that after the game, I wouldn't have believed it. I thought he hit more than that, and I thought that didn't think he missed that many. And I tweeted out during the game that he's quickly approaching Jordan Hall's territory, where if he gets a clean look, it's going in. And that's just, and that it's not necessarily true, but it's just how you feel about when he gets a clean look. You're confident that he's going to knock it down. And so, I thought he played a great game. And I thought that some of the misses he had were shots he had to take. It wasn't as efficient as you would love to be. But again, we won the game, and the ball was in his hands, and he played 38 minutes. he's going to miss some shots, and he's going to make some big ones. And he also was 7 of 8 at the free throw line, which is huge to close the game out down the stretch.
All right, let's quick hit a few of the other individual performances. Austin Etherington, again, box score is not going to overwhelm you. Only 2 points. He did have 6 boards. He had 3 assists. He had a steal. He had a block. He had a couple of bad turnovers, but I thought, and I tweeted out, Austin Etherington is doing the kinds of things that win you games like this. And I thought, again, especially early, I thought Indiana's ability, to prove to themselves that they could stay in the game early was big. And look, when it was 7-2, after that under 16-minute timeout, you, me, everybody else is thinking, oh man. Obviously, I was very positive early, before the game started. I thought we were going to win, and I didn't lose that belief, but it starts to teeter a little bit. And I thought Austin Etherington got a steal here and a rebound there that, helped stem the tide, or just helped, it was like a play Noah would make, and he went up and made it. And even though he maybe didn't contribute as much, down the stretch or in the second half, I thought what he contributed early was really important. It's the kind of it's the kind of contribution in a total team victory that you need. Any quick hit thoughts on Austin's play today?
He filled up the stat sheet. I mean, he only had 2 points, but you got 6 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, a block. And once he starts hitting threes, which we keep waiting for to happen, but I feel like it's coming, he's going to be incredibly dangerous and such a key part of the team because, if you can get a guy that's that tall who can shoot and also does all this hustle stuff, I mean, that's tremendous, and that's a huge asset to have. And so, I love the energy he brings. I think defensively he's solid, and I think that he makes a lot of small plays. Like you said, he makes plays that win you games.
Some interesting tweets coming out right now. Dustin Dopreich, Justin Albers, the guys talking with Tom Crean. He says, talking about how Indiana's kind of stemmed the tide and turned things around the last couple of weeks. Tom Crean says he's cut back reading his Twitter timeline. Says he never reads his Twitter timeline anymore. I don't care. But more importantly, he says he's worked hard to cut the negativity out of the program the last 2 weeks. And I think that jive, and you can look at that as coach speak, but it jives with what you see. And I'm telling you, especially with college athletes, and when you watch every game, and when you watch every minute of every game, and when you watch a program from season to season to season, if you want to know why I thought we were going to lose the Northwestern game at home and why I thought we were going to win today, it's because I watched this team every single game from season to season, and you get a feeling. And I just had a feeling today that even without Noah, it didn't deter me at all. I knew we were going to win this game. You get a feeling. And I think Tom Crean has done a really good job of insulating his team these last few weeks and getting them to get that togetherness back. Ryan, real quick, I want to talk with you about Troy Williams. You look at his stat sheet, 8 points, some rebounds, did a decent job. The 2 turnovers stand out. But those 2 turnovers, pretty sure they both came before the first TV timeout in the first half. And they both happened because for some ridiculous reason, the offense left him at the top of the key with the ball in his hands against the best ball pressure defense in the Big Ten. I mean, we talk a lot about the game plan. The game plan didn't work at all the first 4 minutes of the game. I mean, Indiana looked clueless. And leaving Troy Williams with the ball in his hands at the top of the key was all the evidence you need of that. And as soon as he drove it in, he didn't have a chance, and Ohio State stole the ball. Here's what I liked about this game is not only did Indiana adjust, but Troy Williams did. He didn't have any more turnovers, and you didn't see any more wild moments with Troy Williams driving into the lane. He was content. I mean, he was almost frantic to get the ball out of his hands as soon as it would get in his hands at the top of the key, and he was content to play off the ball. Now, Troy continues to struggle in man-to-man defense, and he did give up some points. But even after those 2 turnovers, Troy scores 8 points. He has 2 boards. He has 3 assists. I thought he did a lot of good things to contribute to the win. And I thought, to his credit, as soon as he realized, okay, I can't do this wild and crazy dribbling stuff, he adjusted. The team adjusted, and it was a small thing that was nice to see from a young guy and from the team. To adjust in game, especially with the team that we've seen struggle to adjust in game all season. Your quick hit thoughts on Troy.
I mean, the guy played 32 minutes against a top 25 team, and he's a freshman.
He played 32
and
minutes.
It's what the box score says. 32
Wow.
minutes. I was shocked by that.
I did not realize he played that many minutes.
Yep, 32 minutes, and like you said, 8 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. I also thought that he did great work at the free throw line, 4 or 5. He also had a really nice drive and layup off of a pass from Etherington. I think that was towards the end of the first half. I just think that he continues to grow and become more than just an athlete. And I think that, he did struggle in man-to-man defense a few times today, but he was also pretty smooth running the offense. He made some nice passes. And again, all those athletic things and the finishing and all that stuff that we've seen from Troy that separate him as a player are great, but only if you can do all the other stuff and be solid within the team concept and within the offense. And so I think you're starting to see him just get better at playing with people and playing within the framework of the team, setting. So I have been encouraged by his play, even though he's not blowing us away with numbers. He's really playing better basketball as a whole, I think, and I think that showed today again too.
Another great tweet from the guys doing wonderful work at the press conference. This is Dustin Doperak again, quoting Tom Crean. Talking about Will Sheehy, saying, Will, Jordan Holes, Victor Oladipo changed the culture of the program. Will's the only one left. Again, that's why, to me, Will and Victor will always be the movement in this program because of what they did for the swagger and confidence and work ethic of this program. And obviously Will's final game at home is coming against Nebraska. And Ryan, let's talk about that here real quick. Because, Will Sheehy's a guy, I mean, he got over 1,000 points. He's never going to go down in the history books as one of the greatest Hoosiers of all time, right? He's not going to make your, all Indiana first team, second team, third team, or maybe even the honorable mention. And yet I feel like what awaits Will on Wednesday night after the Nebraska game is one of the biggest ovations an Indiana Hoosier has ever gotten. And I do feel like part of that is going to be the ovation that we can't give Victor that we all want to give Victor, and so Will's going to get some of that. But most of it is just going to be what Will himself represents, the self-made player. The guy who just hustles all the time, the guy who has always done his very best to fill his role and to play for the name on the front of the jersey as opposed to the name on the back, all of that stuff, to be a student athlete, all those things. And and I know we're planning to do some things for Podcast on the Brink for Inside the Hall about Will's senior day. It's one of the ones that that I'm anticipating the most. I can't wait to see the reaction that he gets, and I think it makes it even more special what he's done these last 2 games at home and what we can expect him to do against Nebraska. I mean, it's become kind of a thing on the show. I mean, you've been the guy who has been the quickest to both praise and jump on Will Sheehy at every possible opportunity. That's why we let you do the opening of the last show. But give me some thoughts, after another just signature performance from Will as we head into his senior night, what he meant. What he and Victor together obviously meant, but now as Will is the guy who stayed around for the transition year, and so I think it further solidifies his role in that IU lore. But give me some of your thoughts on him as we head into his final home game as a Hoosier.
Well, my my cardiac health is not going to miss Will, but I will miss Will. And what I love about him is he goes 110% all the time, and he's done that since he stepped on the court. At Indiana. And what I love also is that he and Oladipo came, and people were talking about, these guys are just athletes, they've got to become basketball players. Well, they became basketball players, and they became damn good basketball players. And it's great to see Will finishing off, his senior year playing the way he is, especially after some early struggles that had us all questioning, whether or not he really could take a leadership role because his play was so uneven at times and things like that. But I'll tell you what, it is really great to see him playing with a purpose and being a leader and playing so hard, right down to the finish. He's being Will Sheehy, and not only is he being Will Sheehy, but he's also scoring and doing things that you don't always expect him to do. And it's great to see that, see anybody, regardless of who they are, finish their career that way. But when it's Will, a guy who has meant so much to the program, it means even more. And I agree with you too. I think that, as you said earlier, I think that Victor Will recruiting class changed Indiana basketball and made it better and took it to that next level because they brought in just a swagger and confidence we hadn't seen in a long time. And they had that swagger and confidence, but they're also humble kids. They're also smart kids. They're also, guys who just wanted to play basketball. It had nothing to do with, a lot of times swagger and confidence masks massive insecurity, and those kids end up being, problem children. Those guys weren't that at all. They just wanted to play basketball, and they wanted to play it well, and they did. And Will has continued this year. It may not, as a whole, have been the senior year he wanted, but he's certainly closing it out as well as anyone could have hoped.
And we're not going to know this until next year, but here's the thing. Here's what really frustrated me about this season. For a long time, basically up to that Purdue game, is that it looked like all the gains that we had made in terms of just attitude and work ethic and all those things, it looked like almost all of those things had been lost, and now we have this huge gap year where we lose those things, and now it's like we're starting from scratch next year. What I love most about these last 4 games is not just that it gets us back on the fringes of the bubble, to where the NCAA tournament becomes a semi-realistic hope if we can win these next 2 games. Like, that's nice and all, and it's nice to see us win 3 out of 4 and to get back to 7 and 9 to where we're not that far out of 5th and 6th in the Big Ten Conference. But what I like about these last 4 games is how we've gotten them and how, it feels like the efforts and the attitude and the will to win that we saw the last couple years is now starting to bleed into the new guys. In terms of Yogi being a better leader with picking his spots, and Jeremy Hollowell and Hunter Perea starting to show leadership in terms of effort and aggressiveness. And look, Jeremy Hollowell's not always making the shots, but he's showing the younger guys earlier in games, hey, it's okay to go out and just play and try and make plays and have fun. And Evan Gordon stepping up and again, Ryan, correct me if I'm overplaying it a little bit, but what I was most afraid about as we started going through this season, we're sitting at 5 and 9, is that so much of what we had gained over the 3 previous seasons, dating back to Victor and Will's freshman season, which wasn't even that great record-wise, but where you could see the light starting to turn on. I thought we were starting to lose some of that. I'm starting to get confidence with the play of guys like Austin Etherington and Hollowell and Perea and Stan and Troy and all those guys and Yogi, that we're not going to lose that link, that we're building some positive momentum here to the end of the year that's going to build in. And those lessons that we got from just the super maturity of guys like Jordan Hulls and Victor Oladipo and Cody Zeller, we're not going to lose all that. Some of that's going to be passed on because it sure as heck looks like it's being passed on from Will to those younger guys right now. Crazy thought, or you agree?
No, I agree. I think that's part of what a program is about, is those guys who are leaders passing down, and handing off the example and showing guys what they need to do, and and showing guys how to be college athletes, how to be role models, how to be student athletes, things like that. It's a whole, it's an all-encompassing thing, and it's not just work ethic. It's not just that stuff. It's also just being leaders and showing these guys how to live while they're at college and things like that. And I think that you're right. I think that you're starting to see some of these other guys sort of pick up that, that attitude and push it forward, which is great for the program. I mean, That's the point. Is that from year to year, these guys have to pick things up and pass them on. It's part of being a team.
All right, so I'm looking right now. Obviously, Nebraska, they won at Michigan State. They won 60-51. Who played that game for Michigan State? Do you know? Did you watch that game? Appling, Payne. I mean, who of their injured guys played that game?
I did not watch it. I didn't see.
So, okay, so we don't know necessarily that, but I mean, they lost to Iowa on the road, they lost to Ohio State on the road, they lost to Purdue on the road, they lost to Penn State on the road, they lost to Michigan on the road, they beat Northwestern on the road, they beat Michigan State, they lost to Illinois. So this is still a team that's only won 2 Big Ten games, and I know people like to hold out that Michigan State game. And look, you went at the Breslin Center. We didn't do that from '93 to last year. So I mean, I'm not going to poo-poo that achievement because that's big, but this Nebraska team comes in. We're not going to take them lightly because we already lost to them, and we see how we're playing. We have no idea if we're going to have Noah. I mean, Ryan, is there any reason to be anything after what we've seen these last 2 games? Those were ranked teams. This is a Nebraska team that's 17-11, 17-12. I mean, they basically have the same overall record as us. Why not be confident about that game? We get that win, we're 8-9. We're going into Chrysler Arena with a chance to get to 500 and beat the Big Ten champion on their home floor. And I know that's let's leave that for what it is. But getting to this Nebraska game, we don't have Andy here to preview it. But do we need a preview? I mean, if you had previewed the Ohio State-Indiana game without Noah Vonleh, you'd find every reason to think Indiana loses. I wouldn't have cared. I still would have thought we were going to win because I just feel like there's a different grit, determination, and togetherness for this team. Frankly, I don't feel like there's much of a way that we lose on Wednesday night. Do you share that same level of confidence?
I'm so scared to make a prediction just because of the way this team has been all year. It's just every outcome is shocking. But this is a Nebraska team that's won 8 out of 10, 8 out of their last 10. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think that Indiana right now needs to worry about Indiana and not Nebraska. And if we play the way that we are capable of playing, we're going to win the game. And I don't think there's any question about that. So I expect us to win, but you never know with this team. Hopefully we've settled down into a more consistent, mindset and are ready to go on Wednesday night.
But hey, just for the record, I told you we were going to lose to Northwestern. I feel like I have a good handle on this team, and so I suppose we'll wait until Wednesday for when we wake up on the day of the game. But I felt like you, Ryan, that it was really hard to predict. I'm starting to feel good about this team. Now, I don't know what we'll see at Chrysler Arena. On the road, I don't know what to say. But at home, I felt like this team was going to rebound for this 3-game winning streak, and Nebraska. It's not going to be an easy game. Nebraska can certainly come in and win it, but I believe in this team. I believe in Yogi and Will, and I'll tell you what. You look at today's game. I mean, Yogi and Will were shut out early. I'm trying to see if I have it in my notes when they finally scored. I mean, it was late, but it was. Ohio State goes on their 7-2 run. Indiana goes on a 7-4 run. Then Ohio State goes on an 8-2 run, and they're up 19-12. And they might have extended that, I think, to 20-12, and then got a free throw out of the timeout. And then Yogi and Will just put it on themselves to get this team back in the driver's seat of the game. And then into the second half, then between the two of those guys, they scored 22 of Indiana's 28 points. And so. And again, that's without Noah Vonleh. We don't know if he's going to play against Nebraska. But, I loved seeing that from those two guys. Their ability, even with the defense keyed up to stop them, their ability to step up and say, hey, our team needs us. We have to find a way to manufacture points. They did it, and that's what gives me confidence. Because they also found a way to do that against Iowa. Now, Yogi didn't do it as much from a scoring perspective, but from a leadership perspective, and Will certainly did from a scoring perspective. But I like what we're seeing out of those two guys, and that's what gives me confidence. So with that said, Ryan, just a huge victory today for Indiana, 72-64 against Ohio State at home. Second straight ranked team Indiana's beaten. When we dropped to 5-9, we knew there's a 4-game slate. If we can win these 4 games, we've got a shot to get back on the bubble. Well, we've taken care of the first 2. Those are done. They're in our back pocket. We're 7-9. If we can beat Nebraska, we go to Chrysler Arena with a chance to be 500 in the Big Ten season and really get ourselves back on the bubble. We'll worry about that starting Wednesday. Looking back at these last two games, especially this game, your final thoughts here on just the way that Indiana's played and what it means for this team this season and this program moving forward.
I mean, the team's just coming together. It's so clear that they're playing better together, and to win without Noah Vonleh. I mean, we've mentioned that a few times, but that's gigantic. I mean, it really is gigantic to have won a game without, arguably the best as far as the NBA, and pure talent is concerned, player on the team. They pretty much controlled a game against a top 20 team that's one of the best defensive teams in the country throughout. And really won the game. I mean, I'm not saying it was an easy victory. There were moments where it was tight and Ohio State did some nice things, but Indiana really controlled the second half of that game, and without arguably their best all-around player. So really, that's a huge deal, and it shows that this team can sort of this team doesn't live or die with Noah Vonleh. I mean, he's obviously a huge part, and now when he comes back, he'll be coming back into a position where he doesn't maybe have to do as much for this team to win games. He's going to be relied on, but he doesn't have to score 30 points for this team to win. So in a big situation, at least. So it was just you're right. It was a huge win. It was a big deal. Now let's go get Nebraska.
Absolutely, let's get them. And we've talked a lot this season about the inexperience of this program and how much we've relied on the freshmen. Well, today, Noah, the best of the freshmen, maybe the best player on the team, wasn't there. And Stan Robinson, as great as he was against Iowa, I think we all knew coming in this was going to be a much different game. And against Ohio State's ball pressure, their ability to keep guys out of the lane and strip the ball was not going to be a good game for Stan Robinson. And outside of his kind of magical George Gervin moment in the second half, it really wasn't, and Troy Williams had to pick his spots. This was a game where the guys who have been here the longest showed the guys who haven't how to win the Indiana way. I think it starts with Tom Crean. I thought he did a good job of having his team, if not necessarily ready to play right out of the gate, ready to respond. We struggled right out of the gate, but we were ready to respond to that initial run, and we were ready to respond in the second half to that initial run. And I think Crean's ability to adjust in the game, there's been so much to criticize him for all season long. There's a lot to laud him for again today, just like there was against Iowa, just like there have been, at times these last few games. And so another really good job by Tom Crean. But, again, the ability of Will Sheehy to step up. Evan Gordon in the second half when things weren't going well. There was a stretch there. We may not have even talked about Evan Gordon enough today because the three that he made, his ability to drive, in that kind of mid part of the second half, from about the 16-minute mark to the 10-minute mark, is where I thought he did a lot of really good work when Indiana needed it. He picked the spots to drive, he picked the spots to shoot, and he did a good job. And again, Hunter Mascara-Perea, Jeremy Hollowell, finding ways to make winning plays for this program, just huge. And that's what contributed to the overall team victory for Indiana. The Hoosiers win 72-64. They are now 17-12 overall, 7-9 in the Big Ten. And again, after sitting at 5-9 in the conference, now we're at 7-9 with 2 games. I don't know if we control our own destiny. I hate that statement because you never control your own destiny. I don't know what our destiny is. I don't know if we control our own future. If we win these 2 games, I don't know if that gets us in. But all I know is if Indiana sits at 19-12, no matter what happens in the Big Ten tournament, you sit at 9-9. If we can win these games at home and beat Michigan, it's going to be really hard to keep the brand name of Indiana out of the tournament. So let's make that a really tough decision for the tournament committee. And it seemed really crazy 4 games ago. It still seems a little crazy 2 games later, but it sure seems a lot more possible. And so let's do it. And a game like today sure makes me feel a lot more confident in this team. But most of all, a day like today makes me feel really proud of this team. Because without their best player, Noah Vonleh, the most talented player anyway, this team really rallied. And they played hard, and they played smart, and they played together. and they played like Indiana. And this is a team this year that has been criticized of not playing like Indiana teams. They haven't moved on offense, they haven't played together, they haven't taken charges, they haven't done all those things we like to see. Team sure did that today. And it was great to see a huge victory for the Hoosiers. And we'll see what they can do. We'll be back here Wednesday night after the Nebraska game. I believe we will probably wait until after Will Sheehy's senior speech to start the show. But we'll be here as we always are, assemblycall.com/live. Thank you to everybody who listened live. Make sure you go to assemblycall.com/subscribe and get on our email list. Andy wasn't here tonight, but he will be doing his in-depth analysis later on tonight that we can send out tomorrow. So make sure that you get on our email list. Get that. It's free. You're going to want to get that analysis. My thanks to Ryan Phillips for being with me. Make sure you join us Wednesday after the Nebraska game. We'll be here. Hey, this season looked kind of crazy, kind of ugly, but we're starting to get that upswing, starting to get that crescendo. Let's support this team. Let's be with them. Let's have confidence in them that they can keep this run going and finish strong, not only for the end of this season, but leading into the next season. All I can say is I'm proud. I'm really proud of the guys wearing cream and crimson today. They did a great job, won a big game, and I'm sure that you all too. You all are too. Thank you all very much for watching this episode of the Assembly Call. I'm your host, Jared Morris, and we will talk to you on Wednesday night after IU Nebraska. Have a good Sunday night, everybody.